Here we go. Orkney Islands, Scotland. Like many people, David and Kate Grant dreamed of going around the world. But their dream was out of the ordinary. The Grants and their 3 children wanted to travel in a horse-drawn wagon. It started as a pipe dream, says David. None of us knew a thing about driving a horse. In 1990, the Grants sold their house in Scotland, bought a horse and wagon, and hit the road. They brought along a set of encyclopedias so the children could keep up with their studies. The trip got off to a good start as the family rode through Belgium, France, and Italy. But then they ran into some problems. They arrived in Slovenia in 1991 at the start of the Balkan Wars, just as jets were bombing the country. 2 years later, in 1993, after crossing Hungary, Russia, and Kazakhstan, red tape prevented them from entering China. They had to go 1,600 kilometers out of their way into Mongolia. There, thieves tried to rob them, and the Grants used a slingshot to drive them away. In 1996, the family flew from Japan to North America for the last leg of their trip. They spent more than a year crossing the United States and Canada. In late 1997, after 7 years on the road, the family sailed from Nova Scotia back to Scotland. Kate says she's ready to settle down now, but David is not so sure. Maybe I've got another expedition in me, he says. Oh. So tell me, what do you think? Number 1, did you like the story? Did you like the story? Hi, Rashid. Did you like the story? Excuse me. Number 2, did you understand the story? Did you understand the story? On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 means I understood nothing. 10 means I understood every word. I understood everything. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much of the story did you understand? Ooh, 9.5. Very good. 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 So I hope you liked the story, and I hope you understood the story. Now, I think I will ask you some questions about the story. Okay? I was reading fairly slowly, but now let me ask you some questions. Now, this is not fair because this story is designed for reading comprehension, not for listening. But we did this together as a listening exercise because that's what we have available, right? Not everybody has this book. So we will do it as a listening exercise. So it's much easier as a reading comprehension because you can look at the question and go back and find it in the story. But here you cannot do that. You have to remember what Teacher Tom read. Number 1, what did the Grants dream of doing? What was their dream? What did the Grants dream of doing? They dreamed to travel around the world, right? But in a horse-drawn wagon. Yes, they wanted to travel around the world with a horse and wagon. And number 2 is, why was their dream out of the ordinary? Why was their dream out of the ordinary? We already answered this question. Because they wanted to travel around the world in a horse-drawn wagon, right? Not driving, not flying, not on a train, not on a plane, not on a sailboat or a hot air balloon. Horse and wagon. That is how Teacher Tom would go to school 35 years ago. Yes, and none of them knew how to drive a horse, probably, or ride a horse. When did they hit the road? When did they hit the road? Do you remember the year? Yes, I'm American. When did you hit the road? I'm sorry, when did they hit the road? When did the Grants hit the road? In 1990. In 1990. Some of the answers are coming in late because there is a delay in the internet. That's okay. How did the children keep up with their studies? How did the children keep up with their studies? Do you remember? How did the children keep up with their studies? They brought along a set of encyclopedias. This is before the internet, right? They brought along a set of encyclopedias. Encyclopedias are books with a lot of information about different topics. Let's see, what else? What problems did they run into? What problems did they run into? Well, they arrived in Slovenia in 1991 at the start of the Balkan Wars, just as the Jets were bombing the country. So they traveled right into a war zone. Why couldn't they get into China? Why couldn't they get into China? Do you remember the expression? Why couldn't they enter China? They couldn't enter China because of the red tape. The red tape, the bureaucracy of the law, right? How far out of their way was Mongolia? How far out of their way was Mongolia? Do you remember how many kilometers? Excuse me. Mongolia was 1,600 miles out of their way. What happened in Mongolia? What happened in Mongolia? Not 600, 1,600. What happened in Mongolia? Thieves tried to rob them, and the Grants used a slingshot to drive them away, to repel the thieves. What was the last leg of their trip? What was the last leg of their trip? Hare. Come on, Hare. The last leg of their trip, they flew from Japan to North America. So North America was the last leg of their trip, right? Are the Grants ready to settle down now? Not sell, settle. Settle down. Are the Grants ready to settle down now? Are they ready to settle down after their long journey, long trip, long expedition? The wife is ready to settle down, right? Kate is ready to settle down. But Grant is not sure. The husband is not sure. He might want another journey or expedition. An expedition is a very long exploratory journey. That's okay, Rashid. Okay, now I have a question for you. Would you like to travel around the world? Let me ask you. Would you like to travel around the world? And if so, how would you like to travel? In a car, on a boat, on a train, in a plane, jetpack, helicopter, horse and buggy, ice skates. Would you like to travel around the world? And number 2, how would you like to travel? And number 3, who would you like to go with? Would you like to go by yourself? Or would you like to take Teacher Tom?